Welcome and thank you for clicking on the channel. We're going to go over some tips and tricks and things that I like to do when I cut hair. And also, if you haven't been here before, here's my social media handle. You can follow me there. You can ask me questions, whatever you like, just let me know. And we are going to jump right into this haircut. I like to knock down the length sometimes on a haircut. This is the first time I work with this client, the first time I've cut his hair. So I worked a part of the consultation in as cutting it down and finding the correct length. He said he didn't want a whole bunch off, so we knocked down just a tiny bit, which was I think less than 1/8 of an inch with the number 1.5 guard. So we took it down to 3/8 of an inch against the grain. We're cutting it against the grain of his hair since he has loose curls when he lets his hair grow out. But right now he has it low enough to where it all still lays down, but it's semi-coarse. It's not extremely coarse, but it's coarse enough to where the hair doesn't actually curl all the way up, but it sort of waves, so that if you hit it with the grain, the clipper actually won't pick up anything. It'll just kind of smush it down. So with super coarse hair, if the hair is curly enough, it'll stand up and you'll be able to cut it with the grain. So right now you can see that we're knocking out this bottom line, this skin line. Since this is going to be a skin fade, we're going to take our skin line all the way around. This is going to be a low skin fade. Then we're going to stretch all the way up to the parietal ridge, which is the point where if you took it from the middle of the bar all the way across the back of the forehead, all the way around to the middle of the other bar, that's the ridge that we're talking about. So everything that can go all the way up straight to the center. So our first guideline is this bald line, this line of demarcation. We're taking out all the hair, making sure that we're being as thorough as we can, making sure we're not missing any little hairs, making sure that our guideline, our first guideline is straight into a semi-drop, low fade. And then what we're gonna do is take our Ergos. These are my Gamma Ergos. I've been using them for a couple weeks. I like them. And what I'm doing is setting in my first guideline. This is my open, no guard open guideline. And I like to set points and then connect the dots. It's easier for me to go a little bit quicker when I set points and connect the dots. So you can see right there, I'm connecting this dot. You'll be able to see it a little bit better when I do the other side. When I set points and connect the dots, I don't have to sit and pick at it. I don't have to make sure that I move across in a more even fashion. I'm making sure that I'm going up and taking out my inch to a little bit more than an inch, nearly an inch and a half, but not quite for this. So we're gonna set this point and then we're gonna set it in the front point, and then we're gonna connect the dots and take everything out underneath just to make it easier. We wanna eliminate as much guesswork as possible when we're going into any cut. We're setting our first guideline. Now we're going in with our number 1 guard. Since we started off with our 1.5, we're going to our number 1 guard, setting our 2 points, connecting the dots, and now we got our next fade zone. And you'll see that we're doing it over here on the left side of the head, taking it up to that parietal ridge that we talked about earlier. As you can see, his hair grows towards the front across the left side of his head, so it doesn't grow straight down towards his ear. It grows and points towards his eye, like the front of his hairline. That means that when we do cut it, we have to make sure that we're not just notching or cutting straight towards the ceiling. We have to make sure that we're cutting against the grain. So we're cutting that with our clippers tilted back at an angle at some points. And the points you can see right there, we're making sure that we are cutting that against the grain, making sure we see which way the grain grows. These grow a little bit further down at an angle that point down towards the ear. we're making sure that this guideline is super even. Starting to take some of it out. We've got that closed up. We started off with that one all the way open to set the guideline in, and now we've closed it up just to soften it a little bit between the two guidelines before we move to our next step. And now we're using our 1/16 of an inch or our number 0 guard. That number 0 guard takes out that line between the no guard open and the number 1 guard. If you can see this, we're just using the corner of this to take out some of these dark spots. Tiny bit of dark spots. We're going to detail it a little bit later, but we want to make sure that we're not just leaving any unnecessary bulk, any unnecessary dark spots, any unnecessary mess that we can just touch up really quickly. And now we're going to our last line. We're taking out our bottom line with the clipper all the way closed up. We're just tapping it, moving it a tiny bit. So not moving our bolt line up, but with our clippers closed, we're just moving over that line so that you can start to see it disappear. We don't want to start a new fade. We don't want to start a new fade zone. And right now we're just using the corner of that to clean up the front of this fade zone, and we're working it all the way back towards the back of his head. As you can see, we're working a little bit to detail it, and you can almost see that line all the way taken out. And what we've done right now is actually open our clipper up halfway. So we're running that a little bit further up past where we were with the clipper all the way closed. We're running that all the way up, flicking out once we get closer towards the line where the 1/16 is, once we get to the top of the fade zone where we use the clipper all the way open. So we're using that to flick out just to make that super soft, make all those disappear, any of the lines. And right now, we got our 1/16 back on. Notching that line out, taking the guard off to clean up a little bit more. So we got no guard probably about halfway. We're cornering through some of those dark spots just to make sure that that is nice and clean. I'm using my mirrors to look to make sure that everything looks right in the mirror and not just to my eye, so I'm not missing some of the spots. I want to make sure that I also want to look at these shadows. So there's a spot right here I'm about to pick at that's actually a shadow. It's not a dark spot left in the cut, but it's the shape of the client's head. So sometimes when it dips in a little bit right there above the ear, it can look darker, but it's an illusion. So you have to look and use your mirrors, make sure you're turning your client, looking at it from a different angle to make sure that you can get the cut to come out the way that'll be best for your client's desired look. Right here, we've taken our 1.5 again with our Ergos, those Gamma Stylecraft Ergos that I like so much. I don't have any resistance, any pulling, any tugging with those. They're just knocking those little hairs off. So we can detail this and get the rest of the blend. We're working our lever open and close through here. I can do that. I'm doing that with the back of my pointer finger and my middle finger on the back side of those clippers. We're just working those back and forth to make sure we're taking out any of those spots. And now we've got a tiny spot. We've knocked it down another guard size to the number 1 guard. And we've moved down to our number 1 guard to remove some vertical sections to take out some weight, some of those dark spots. And just remember that when you do go down a guard size and you still have a guard on, that the vertical sections you remove will only be a little bit lighter than the section that you're picking into to remove the weight. And then we're knocking down those little hairs on the hairline. We've gone down, we've got the number 1 on. Even though his hair is not coarse like we said earlier, you can still knock down a little bit of some of those flyaways and make sure that everything's laying down before we start the edge up, which we've done right here. You can see we got our Babyliss Gold Effects. We're tapping in a hairline. He told me that he's been pushed back before. The guy that normally cuts his hair has pushed him back. So we're making sure that we're just setting in, we're creating that shape. and we're not trying to create anything that we want to see. So we don't want to create anything the barber wants to see. We need to create the thing that's going to be best for our client, the thing that's going to last the longest, and the thing that's going to be sharpest. So we want to make sure that we're balancing those things. And I switched over to my detailers just because they hit a little bit harder the way I got them set. I love the Wahl detailers. I love the blade. They're really sharp. I haven't found anything that hits harder than them. That's just me personally. I'm sure people set their trimmers or clippers differently, but for my seat cups and my vertical bars, if I'm having trouble with anything, I like to tap it with the detailers. They seem to cut through anything pretty quickly. And right now I'm just notching out that seat cup, and I'm going to switch over and use this corner of my blade and the opposite corner of my blade, since I only really want to be cutting with 1 to 2 teeth in this seat cup, to make sure that I can actually get a curve. I don't want it to look bulky. I don't want it to look botched. I just want to make sure that I got everything I can going, everything lined up the way that we want to see it, the way that's going to be best for the client. And then we're just cleaning up his neck, making sure we don't have any more dark spots back there, all the way around. Pretty much prepping the bottom of the fade to be transitioned into his beard. So the last couple things we're gonna do is get the seat cup all the way tapped in, and then we're gonna blend his beard in, making sure his vertical bars match. I feel like the edge up is the most important part of the haircut for a lot of different clients, depending on what they need, what they like to see. At least where I grew up, I know edge ups were important, super important. People get made fun of, loved, hated, just based off of their haircut, their edge up. Not even necessarily the whole haircut, but just that edge up being so important. I got multiple mirrors in our little studio that we're making sure we're cross-checking it multiple different ways. So now we're just going in with this clipper close to hit the top of the sideburn. We're gonna open it all the way up and just notch down a tiny bit. You see we opened it up, notch down a tiny bit to get that first line to disappear, the super hard line. We take that one out. We're pretty much just fading down, but literally fading down backwards. And then we're taking our number 1 guard, so 1/8 of an inch, and we're notching that out, notching it out. And then we're gonna go with the grain a little bit, and we're gonna take some vertical sections out of there just to remove any more weight, so that we got a smooth transition from his haircut into his beard. So that's important. We've already done it on this side, as you can see. And the last thing we're gonna do is tap everything in with a razor. So we're just gonna tap in his seat cups, knock in the back of that beard with those super sharp detailers again. Clean those up. He says he gets razor bumps, so we're not gonna do anything underneath the neck with the razor, but we are gonna tap in his beard. We're gonna tap in his seat cups, and then tap in his vertical bars. So I really appreciate you if you made it this far in the video. You appreciate it. I'll put my handles, everything again at the end of the video. If you have any questions, any suggestions, any types of videos you want to see, anything I didn't cover. We're stretching the skin right here with the thumb and tapping in everything into his seat cups. So we're just pushing everything or pulling it back into the hairline, making sure that it's perfect as it can be. So our razor is our sharpest tool, is our most precise tool. We can take out one hair at a time. We can cut the hairs at an angle. We can do what we need to do to make sure that we are getting the desired look for our client. So that's what's most important, the client satisfaction, and being able to deliver what the client wants. As you can see, we're just tapping in the other side, tapping in this vertical bar on the opposite side. We're saying, consulting with the client, cross-checking in the mirror. And there shouldn't be a whole lot to cross-check at this point. So if everything was set in, you should be pretty good to go. Thanks again for watching. Please don't hesitate to reach out. Let me know what questions you have, what comments. Leave it all down below. Send me a message. Do whatever you need to do. Just let me know. Talk to you soon.